I stared at my wife's phone, anger hardening like ice in my veins. The messages were explicit, unmistakable. Photos, plans, and declarations of passion between her and David, her supposed professional partner. Hey, before we go any further, like and share this video to help our work. Now, let's get back to the story. One message in particular burned into my brain. I can't wait for one more night before you go back home. Home. To me. To our 12-year marriage. I took screenshots methodically, my hand steady despite the storm inside me. Then I put her phone back exactly where I found it, on the nightstand. She wouldn't be back from San Francisco for another 3 days, plenty of time for what I needed to do. Some men would scream, break things, or call her immediately with accusations. Weak men. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of seeing my emotional collapse. No, my response would be much more powerful. My name is Michael Grayson. Up until almost a year ago, I commanded respect as a fire captain in Denver with a beautiful photographer wife named Laura and a life most men would envy. Now I live in isolation near Flathead Lake in Montana, teaching survival techniques to tourists and living entirely on my own terms. Laura and I met during a warehouse fire downtown. She was photographing for the Denver Chronicle, getting dangerously close to the action. I pulled her back just as a wall collapsed where she had been standing. When the smoke cleared, she asked for my number for a human interest story, or so she claimed. 3 months later, we were engaged. For 10 years, we were solid. I moved up the ranks at the fire department. She built her photography business. We traveled when possible. We hiked the Rockies on weekends. We talked about having kids someday, but we never got there. Then she landed her contract with National Geographic 2 years ago. "This changes everything, Mike," she said the night she got the news. It did change, but not the way we expected. The first assignments were manageable. A week photographing wildlife in Yellowstone, 10 days capturing glaciers in Alaska. She would come home energized, and we would reconnect intensely. Then the trips got longer. 2 weeks in Costa Rica, a month in Kenya following conservationists. "It's the nature of the job," she would explain whenever I questioned the long absences. "You can't rush the perfect shot." I understood timing. As a firefighter, timing meant everything. When to advance, when to retreat, when to change tactics. So I adapted, created my own routines, and stayed focused on my career. Then came the San Francisco project, 6 months documenting urban renewal, requiring weekly trips to the Bay Area. And David Sloan entered our story. "He's the writer who will be pairing up with me for the series," Laura explained during dinner after her first week. "He used to work for The New Yorker." I noticed how her eyes brightened when she mentioned him, the slight flush in her cheeks. I saw it all, but said nothing. Observation is a survival skill. "David thinks my composition is revolutionary," she'd drop into conversation. "David says we could win an award for this series. David took me to this incredible place in Chinatown. Strictly professional, of course." I was never the jealous type. In firefighting, trust is everything. You need absolute trust in your team when entering a burning building. I extended that same trust to my marriage, even when she started taking calls in other rooms, even when our sex life became scheduled instead of spontaneous, even when she started coming back from trips with a different energy. Until that message preview flashed on her screen at 2 a.m. "I can still taste you on my lips." That night, I laid beside her, studying the face I had woken up to for 12 years, realizing I was sleeping next to a stranger. When morning came, I kissed her as usual before her flight. "I love you," she said casually. "Have a safe trip," I replied, already executing my exit strategy in my mind. As soon as her flight status showed departed, I moved with military precision. I emptied exactly half of our joint account, Not a penny more, not a penny less. I packed a suitcase with the essentials. I called my fire chief with my resignation, citing a personal emergency. I left a brief note for my brother Tommy, a former Marine. I need to disappear for a while. I'm fine. I'll get in touch when I can. Then I drove northwest with no destination other than far away from here. 11 months can strip a man to his core. Living in near isolation, working with your hands, being removed from your old identity, it reveals who you truly are beneath the titles and relationships. I stopped in Kalispell out of necessity when my truck needed repairs. With limited cash, I found work at a sporting goods store. Later, at The Lodge, a luxury resort where wealthy tourists paid premium fees for authentic wilderness experiences. Rachel, the owner of the lodge, hired me immediately after I demonstrated basic survival techniques. These tech executives will pay $2,000 a weekend to learn how to make fire without matches, she explained pragmatically. You're competent, you keep to yourself. When can you start? Rachel was attractive, in her late 30s, confident and capable. She flirted occasionally but respected the clear boundaries I set. Whoever she was, she did a real number on you, she observed after I turned down her dinner invitation. Is it that obvious? You have that look of someone who survived an explosion but is still checking themselves for shrapnel. No rush. Some wounds need the right amount of time to heal. Time was something I had in abundance. Building a new routine, waking at dawn, physical labor until exhaustion, minimal social interaction. I grew a beard, lost the softness that city life had given me. I gained muscle from daily labor and started keeping a journal to organize my thoughts, processing everything without the noise of other people's well-meaning advice. I wrote about anger that ran cold instead of hot, about precisely calculating how to remove myself from a situation instead of destroying it, about strategic thinking instead of emotional reaction. I wrote until I understood my own power, the power of absence. I maintained radio silence on all fronts. No social media, no Google searches of her name. A clean break was the only way forward. I bought a basic burner phone for emergencies and gave the number only to Tommy, with strict instructions. She's looking for you, he told me during one of our monthly calls. Hired a private investigator. She knows why you left. I told you she showed up at my house crying, claiming you disappeared without explanation, wanted to know if you were safe. What did you tell her? That you're alive and that's all she's going to know. Good man, Tommy. Do you plan on coming back, Mike? There's nothing to go back to. What I didn't share with Tommy was that I found an unexpected peace in this new existence. The lodge attracted an interesting clientele of corporate executives and serious nature lovers. I developed a reputation for being skilled, reserved, and unquestionably in control. Female guests occasionally showed interest. I declined without explanation. For the first time since I met Laura, I focused entirely on my own path instead of accommodating someone else's journey. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had to lose everything to regain my independence. Winter arrived in Montana with brutal efficiency. Tourist traffic slowed down to the occasional weekend warriors. I chopped wood, maintained the equipment, and led the rare ice fishing expedition for the hardier guests. The isolation intensified with the shorter days, but I had grown used to the solitude until the day she found me. December 18th. I remember the date clearly, the day after the lodge staff's holiday party. I was checking in a family from Minnesota when the front door opened, bringing in a gust of cold air and the last person I ever expected to see. Laura was standing in the entrance, snowflakes melting in her hair, her face thinner than I remembered, her eyes uncertain as they met mine. She was wearing a red wool coat I didn't recognize, holding a small suitcase. Time compressed. The family at the counter faded into background noise. My body tensed instinctively, ready for a confrontation. "Room for one," she said calmly, stepping forward after the family from Minnesota moved away. No dramatic greeting, no tears, just 3 practical words. I could have turned her away. I could have told her to leave. I could have demanded to know how she found me. Instead, I methodically entered her information, swiped her credit card, and handed her the key. Cabin 8, the last one on the path to the left. Breakfast starts at 7. My voice remained level, giving away nothing. "Thank you," she replied, her fingers briefly touching mine as she took the key. She hesitated. "You look well, Michael." I offered no response, just a directional nod toward the cabins. She left without another word. I kept my composure until I reached the staff restroom, where my stomach churned in a physical rejection of her sudden appearance. Rachel found me washing my face with cold water. "That woman who checked in, she's your past, isn't she?" Rachel asked directly. I nodded once, drying my hands methodically. "Do you want me to tell her we're booked up? I'll make her leave." I considered it briefly. "No, I've been running from this for almost a year. It's time to face it head on." Rachel squeezed my shoulder. "My apartment is above the office if you need a place to regroup." That night, sleep eluded me. I paced my cabin, calculating the distance between my door and cabin 8. What was her purpose here? How had she tracked me down? What could she possibly want after all this time? At 3 a.m., I walked down to the edge of the frozen lake. The moon illuminated the ice, stars shining above with winter clarity. I stood there until the cold cleared my thoughts, sharpening my resolve. By dawn, I had made my decision. I would hear her out, say what needed to be said, and move on, with or without the closure she was seeking. I had reclaimed my life once. I could do it again. Laura was waiting in the empty dining room when I arrived to prep breakfast. She was sitting with her hands around a mug of tea, looking simultaneously familiar and like a stranger. "You found me," I stated, making coffee with precise movements, keeping the counter as a barrier between us. "It took longer than I expected. You disappeared completely." She studied me openly. "The beard suits you." "Why are you here, Laura?" Straight to the point, no preamble. She took a deep breath. "Not to beg for forgiveness, not to try and win you back. You deserve better than that." "What I deserved was a wife who didn't cheat," I replied, my voice cutting like a blade. She winced but maintained eye contact. "Yes, you did." The simple acknowledgement, instead of an excuse, caught me off guard. "I'm here because you disappeared without explanation. Why did I come back to an empty house and a missing husband? For weeks I thought you might be dead, until Tommy finally confirmed you were alive, but he wouldn't share anything else." "You know exactly why I left," I stated dryly. "Yes, now I know, but I didn't know then." I laughed without humor. "Convenient. I saw everything, Laura. The messages, the photos, everything." She closed her eyes briefly. "I knew something was wrong that morning. My phone had been moved, but you acted completely normal when you said goodbye." She shook her head. "I didn't put the pieces together until I got back from San Francisco and found you were gone." Early guests started trickling into the dining area. I lowered my voice. "We're not doing this here. I work until 3 p.m. Cabin 14 is empty for maintenance. Meet me there if you want to talk." She nodded, and I headed to the woodpile, where I spent the morning splitting logs with focused precision until my muscles burned with satisfying effort. Cabin 14 smelled like pine cleaner and fresh paint. I built a fire efficiently, needing to keep my hands busy. Laura arrived at exactly 3 p.m., now wearing jeans and a heavy sweater, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, the way she used to wear it before glamorous magazine assignments changed her style. "How did you find me?" I asked immediately as she sat in an armchair. "No more games." My tone made it clear it wasn't a request. She sighed. Your credit card. A gas station transaction in Missoula last January. By the time the investigator tracked it, the trail had gone cold. Then Tommy mentioned you were somewhere near Flathead. I've been scouring the area for months, staying in different towns, showing your picture. A waitress in Kalispell recognized you. I nodded mentally, noting the security flaw. I could disappear again in a few hours if necessary. Your turn, she said. Why leave like that, Michael? Why not confront me? I stared at the flames. What would a confrontation have accomplished? You would have lied like you'd been lying for months. You would have downplayed it or somehow twisted it to blame me, maybe promised it would never happen again. I fixed her with a direct look. But it wasn't a mistake, was it? It was a deliberate choice you made repeatedly. She didn't try to deny it. You're right, it wasn't a one-time thing. How long? 4 months. The number hit like a physical blow. 4 months of deception. Coming home to me, sleeping beside me, all while carrying another man's touch. Did you love him? The question escaped before I could hold it back. I thought I did, she admitted quietly. I convinced myself it was something significant, not just a cheap betrayal. It made it easier to justify. And now I know it was neither love nor special, just selfish destruction. She leaned forward. I'm not here to win you back, Michael. I'm here because you should know that I lost more than you did. I lost myself. I cut off her self-reflection with a scoff. Spare me the victim narrative, Laura. It's not victimhood, it's the truth. Her voice hardened. David dumped me 2 weeks after you disappeared. Said things were too complicated. Now the magazine canceled our project when the rumors spread. Apparently, sleeping with your writing partner violates professional ethics. Her laugh was brittle. I lost 3 other contracts. I had to sell our house. I couldn't pay for it alone. I've spent months in therapy trying to understand why I destroyed everything good in my life. Am I supposed to feel sorry for you? I asked, though some part of me felt avenged by her downfall. It's not for you to understand that your disappearance was the most powerful answer anyone has ever given me. Her eyes shimmered. You didn't scream, you didn't threaten, and you didn't try to hurt him. You simply removed yourself from the equation. You left me to face exactly who I had become, without the benefit of making you the villain. Silence filled the room except for the crackling flames. Outside, the snow began to fall, heavy flakes visible through the window. I'm not the same man who left Denver, I finally said. That person gave up the night I saw those messages. I know. I'm not the same either. She reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. I wrote everything down, things I couldn't say to your face. What happened with David, what happened after. You can read it or burn it, your choice. She placed it on the table between us. I'm staying for 3 days. After that, I'll leave and you'll never have to see me again if that's what you want. She stood up to leave, pausing briefly. For what it's worth, Michael, and I know it means very little now, I have never regretted anything more in my life. After she left, I stared at that envelope for hours, watching the shadows move across the cabin floor. Eventually, I picked it up and tucked it, unopened, into my jacket pocket. Some truths required the right moment. I avoided the main lodge the next day, leading an all-day snowshoe expedition for a group of corporate lawyers. The physical demands and the responsibility for others' safety provided a temporary distance from the emotional confrontation Laura's appearance had triggered. When I returned, Rachel was waiting with a thermos of coffee spiked with whiskey. She came looking for you, Rachel said, handing me a steaming cup. I appreciate it. She's attractive, has that expensive look. Rachel's assessment remained neutral. She used to be different. People change, not always for the better. Rachel studied me over her mug. You know what they say about forest fires? Sometimes they're necessary. They clear out the dead growth so new life can emerge. Your way of saying this confrontation might be a good thing? She shrugged. I'm just saying sometimes destruction serves a purpose. That night in my cabin, I finally opened Laura's letter. 8 pages of her familiar handwriting, once intimate, now like receiving a message from a stranger. She detailed everything without excuses. How the affair started after a late-night photo shoot, how David made her feel valued in ways she hadn't realized were missing, how the thrill became an addiction, how she compartmentalized, telling herself I'd never find out, that she could keep both worlds. Then came the aftermath, David's immediate abandonment as soon as complications arose, the professional fallout, her parents' disappointment, the crushing realization that she had traded substance for an illusion. The final paragraph hit with precision. I don't expect or deserve forgiveness, but you should know that your silence was more powerful than any rage could have been. You forced me to judge myself without the distraction of your anger. There was no one to blame, no one fighting back. Just the pure consequence of my actions reflected in an empty house. It broke me in ways I needed to be broken. I hope someday you find happiness again. You, more than anyone I've known, deserve it. I read the letter 3 times, then went outside and chopped wood in the moonlight until my muscles screamed for relief. On the second day, I found Laura sitting alone at the lodge's back deck. Despite the biting cold, she wore a borrowed parka, too large for her frame, staring out at the frozen lake. I assessed the situation, then deliberately sat in the adjacent chair. I read your letter, I stated after a measured silence. She nodded, still looking at the lake. And nothing. It is what it is. You always had a gift for bluntness. A faint smile touched her lips. Why come all the way here? Why not just call? She turned to face me. Would you have picked up if I called? No. There's your answer. She pulled the parka tighter. Besides, I needed to see your face to know you were actually okay. I'm not okay, I admitted. But I'm getting there. You look stronger somehow. More defined. Losing everything has that effect. You strip life down to the fundamentals. A gust of wind sent snow swirling across the deck. You should go inside, I advised. In a minute, she hesitated. I saw your journal on the table in your cabin when I left the letter. Are you writing again? The question surprised me. In our early years, I wrote stories I never showed anyone. That had disappeared with career advancement and life's complications. Just organizing thoughts, nothing creative. You should try again. You were good. There's a lot of things I should try again. I stood up. But some things shouldn't be revisited. Her expression fell slightly, acknowledging my meaning. Fair enough. As I turned to leave, she said, Tommy misses you. He won't admit it, but he does. Tommy knows how to find me. He says the same about you. I paused. Maybe in the spring. It wasn't a commitment, but it was something, a calculated opening in the wall I had built. That night I dreamed of a controlled burn, not the chaotic fires I fought as a firefighter, but a tactical burn, necessary and purifying. I woke up with unexpected clarity. On the 3rd day, her last day, a massive blizzard hit the region. The lodge lost power around noon. Emergency generators kept the essential systems running, but we advised guests to stay in their cabins, which had fireplaces and emergency supplies. I was helping Rachel distribute extra blankets when I realized Laura was nowhere to be found. Her car remained in the lot, quickly disappearing under the fresh snow. She went out for a walk earlier, one of the maids mentioned, said something about wanting to see the North Trail before she left. The North Trail. 5 miles through dense forest, beautiful but dangerous during a storm. Even experienced hikers could lose their orientation when landmarks disappeared under the snow. How long ago? I demanded, already grabbing my gear. 4, maybe 5 hours. Rachel caught my expression. You are not going out in that. I have to. She doesn't know these woods, Rachel. Visibility is 0. Temperatures are dropping. You'll both end up dead. I'll take the emergency radio and the GPS. I'll mark coordinates every quarter mile. I was already layering up. If I'm not back in 3 hours, call search and rescue. Rachel knew there was no point in arguing. She helped me pack emergency supplies, her movements efficient, but her expression grim. She must still mean something to you, she observed as I checked the radio. She was my wife for 12 years, I replied with finality. Be careful. That hero instinct is going to kill you someday. I gave her a tense nod. Calculated risk assessment. I know these woods. The moment I stepped outside, the ferocity of the storm hit with full force. Wind-driven snow stung any exposed skin. Visibility extended to little more than 10 feet. I pulled down my goggles and pushed toward the North Trail, trundling through knee-high drifts. Under normal conditions, I could hike the whole trail in less than 2 hours. In this weather, it took me 45 minutes just to reach the first mile marker. I called out Laura's name periodically, the wind swallowing my voice almost immediately. 2 miles in, I found the first sign of her, a red scarf snagged on a branch. My focus sharpened. She was out here somewhere, likely disoriented and possibly hypothermic if she'd been out for hours. "Laura!" I shouted, cupping my hands around my mouth. Nothing. I pushed forward, scanning for any break in the snow pattern. Another half mile and I spotted footprints veering off the trail, a classic sign of someone lost, likely trying to find shelter. The tracks led to a cluster of large rocks forming a natural windbreak. As I approached, I saw a huddled figure pressed against the rock face, partially covered in snow. Laura's face was dangerously pale, her lips tinged blue. She was conscious, but clearly in mid-stage hypothermia, shivering violently with slurred speech. "Michael, how did you find me?" "Tracking," I said simply, immediately unfolding the emergency thermal blanket and wrapping it around her. "Can you walk?" She tried to stand, but her legs gave way. I can't feel my feet." "No problem, I've got you." I lifted her efficiently. She weighed less than I remembered as she leaned against my chest. "Keep talking. Stay awake." "So stupid," she muttered against my shoulder. "I thought I'd be back before the storm hit." "Less talk about mistakes, more focus on staying awake," I ordered, beginning the challenging journey back. Every step required maximum effort against the wind and snow, my muscles working at maximum capacity as I carried her through deepening drifts. "Why did you come for me?" she asked after what felt like hours of movement. "You could have let me disappear too." "That's not who I am," I stated firmly, adjusting my grip. "It never was." "That's why I loved you," she whispered. "I still do." I didn't respond, concentrating on navigating through the near-zero visibility. When the lights of the lodge finally appeared through the curtain of snow, the relief nearly buckled my knees. Rachel and 2 employees rushed out, taking Laura from my arms and hurrying her inside to the fireplace. I stood at the door, suddenly recognizing my physical limits, watching as they removed her wet outer layers and wrapped her in dry blankets. Her eyes met mine from across the room, grateful, pained, full of unspoken words. I turned my back, needing distance to process what had just happened, what it meant to have risked my life to save hers without hesitation. Rachel found me later in the kitchen, methodically drinking coffee, still in my snow-encrusted gear. "She's going to be fine," she reported. "No frostbite, just mild hypothermia. The doctor says she got lucky." "Well, that was either incredibly brave or remarkably foolish," Rachel said, sitting across from me. "Probably both." I shrugged. I knew the terrain. I had the right gear. "That's not what I meant, and you know it." She studied me closely. "Do you still care about her?" "It's complicated. It always is." She stood up, squeezing my shoulder as she passed. "She's calling for you. Room 3. We moved her into the main lodge tonight." I sat alone after Rachel left, strategizing my next move. The storm continued to roar outside, mirroring my internal conflict. Eventually, I made my way to room 3 and knocked firmly. "Come in," Laura called, her voice stronger than it was on the mountain. She was propped up in bed, color returning to her face, wrapped in several blankets. An IV bag hung beside the bed, fluids for rehydration. "Thank you," she said simply, as I took the chair beside the bed. "I would have died out there." "What were you thinking, hiking with a storm approaching?" My tone carried no accusation, just a direct question. "I wasn't thinking tactically. I wanted one last look at the place that became your sanctuary." She adjusted the edge of the blanket. "I'm delaying my departure, obviously. The doctor said no travel for at least 2 days." I nodded once. "Whatever it takes." "Michael," she started, then hesitated. "Out there, when you found me, I said something. You were hypothermic, altered mental state. That doesn't make it true." Her eyes held mine. "I still love you. I never stopped. But that burden is mine to carry, not yours." I stood up, meeting distance from the emotional pull. "You should rest." "Wait," she called as I reached the door. "There's something else you should know, something I didn't include in the letter because I wanted to tell you directly." I paused, hand on the doorknob. "David contacted me last month, wanted to get back together now that his new relationship collapsed." Her voice hardened. "I told him exactly where to go, told him what I had lost because of our selfishness." He laughed, said I was being dramatic. I turned, surprised by the controlled anger in her expression. "That's when I knew I had to find you. Not to win you back. I understand the bridges were burned, but to tell you that you were right to leave the way you did. It was the only way for me to comprehend the magnitude of what I had done." A heavy silence filled the room. "Thank you for telling me," I said finally. "I'm not asking for another chance, Michael. I don't deserve one. I just needed you to know that at least one of us finally understands the cost." I nodded once, then stepped out, closing the door firmly behind me. The storm continued for 2 more days, effectively confining everyone to the lodge. I stayed focused on emergency operations and guests' needs, meeting Laura only at meals, where we exchanged civil, more distant conversation. On the afternoon the roads were finally cleared, I found her in the lobby, suitcase packed, settling her bill with Rachel. "Your car has been dug out," I said, approaching with measured steps. "The tires should hold up fine, but take the mountain passes slow. There's still ice in some spots." "I will," she hesitated. "I guess this is goodbye then." Rachel stepped away, giving us privacy. "What will you do now?" I asked. "Back to Denver. I've been taking jobs from smaller publications. It's not National Geographic, but it's honest work." She adjusted her scarf, a new one, as the red one remained lost in the woods. "And you, are you staying here?" "For now. It serves my purpose." She nodded, her eyes scanning my face as if memorizing it. "You know where to find me if you ever want to talk. No pressure, no expectations." "I know." We stood briefly in the compressed space of 12 years of shared history. "I have something for you," I said decisively, reaching into my pocket. I handed her a small, worn notebook. "My journal? The first one?" She took it with evident surprise. "Michael, I can't." "I want you to have it. Maybe it will help you understand everything." Her fingers trembled slightly as she accepted it. "Thank you." Impulsively, she stood on her tiptoes and kissed my cheek, a ghost of familiar intimacy that I neither welcomed nor rejected. "Be happy, Michael. That's all I want for you now." I watched from the lodge steps as she drove away, the snow swirling in her wake until her taillights disappeared around the mountain bend. Raquel appeared by my side, her breath forming clouds in the cold air. "Are you okay?" "Getting there," I replied, with a genuine assessment. "She might come back, you know." "Maybe." I turned toward the lodge, but I won't be waiting. That night, I started a new journal. The first entry was direct. Today, I buried the past, not with forgiveness. I'm not there yet, but with clarity. We were both flawed in different ways. Now, we are both rebuilding in different places. That will have to be enough. 2 weeks after Laura left, my phone rang with an unknown number. My brother Tommy's voice came through the line, uncharacteristically hesitant. "Mike, are you sitting down?" My body tensed. "What happened?" "It's Laura. She was in an accident on I-25 outside of Denver, a head-on collision with a drunk driver." The world shifted for a moment. Is she alive?" "She's alive, but it's critical, Mike. Multiple surgeries. They aren't sure." He paused. "Who else knows my location?" I demanded. "Only her sister Emma called. She asked for your number, said Laura has been asking for you." I closed my eyes briefly, images flashing by. Laura laughing in our kitchen, Laura sleeping beside me, Laura driving away from the lodge. "Give my number to Emma," I decided. "Are you coming back?" Tommy asked. "I haven't decided." But I found myself checking flight schedules from Kalispell to Denver as we spoke. Emma called an hour later, her voice hoarse from crying. "Michael, it's Emma. I don't know if you'll come, but she keeps asking for you. The doctors say they're advising us to prepare for the worst." "Which hospital?" "Denver Memorial, ICU, 4th floor." "I'll let you know my decision." I paced my cabin that night, struggling with conflicting impulses. Part of me wanted to remain detached, to protect the new life I had built. Another part recognized that without proper closure, Laura's ghost would haunt me indefinitely. In the morning, I made a decision. I booked a flight instead of driving, it was more efficient, and left a note for Rachel explaining my temporary absence. Going to Denver, personal matter, back in 3 days. The flight from Kalispell to Denver gave me time to prepare mentally. I would visit briefly, make my peace, and return to Montana without being dragged back into the emotional tangle. Clean, controlled, conclusive. Emma met me at the hospital entrance, her face pale from exhaustion. She hugged me tight, unexpected given our previously distant relationship. "Thank you for coming," she whispered. "How is she?" My tone remained neutral. Emma's expression crumbled. Critical. Internal bleeding, collapsed lung, spinal injury. 2 surgeries already. She gestured toward the elevators. "She's conscious but heavily medicated. She might not recognize you." I nodded, bracing myself before following her to the ICU. The woman in the hospital bed barely resembled the Laura I remembered. Her face was mottled with bruises, one eye swollen shut. Tubes and wires connected her to various machines, each beep a reminder of her precarious state. I approached deliberately, taking the chair beside her. Her hand, the one not encased in a cast, rested palm up on the white sheet. After a brief consideration, I placed my fingers against hers. Her uncovered eye flickered, opening at the contact. Recognition surfaced slowly through the haze of medication. "Michael?" Her voice was nearly inaudible over the sounds of the machines. "You came?" "I came," I confirmed simply. "I didn't think you would." I needed closure. A small smile touched her cracked lips. "Always honest." I leaned closer, keeping my voice low. "I can't stay long, Laura. I've built a new life." "I know." Her fingers curled weakly around mine. "I'm just happy to see you one more time." I sat with her throughout the afternoon, maintaining emotional distance while providing the human contact she clearly needed. When the doctors arrived for evening rounds, I took the opportunity to step out. "I need to speak with you," I said to Emma in the waiting area. Emma looked startled by my bluntness but nodded. "I'm going back to Montana tomorrow," I stated without preamble. "You can't," I mean, she needs you, Michael. The doctors say having loved ones present improves the chances of recovery. I'm not a loved one to her anymore, Emma. That ended when she chose David. Emma's eyes flashed with momentary anger. So you're just going to leave her like this when she might be dying? I am not responsible for her recovery. I came to say a proper goodbye. That is all I can offer. She still loves you. That is unfortunate for her.
Emma stared at me, clearly shocked by my coldness. You've changed. Yes, for the better. When I returned to Laura's room, she was awake, looking at the door as if expecting me. You're leaving, she said immediately, her perception sharp despite her physical state. I didn't insult her with denials. Tomorrow morning. She nodded slightly, wincing at the movement. I understand. Do you? I asked, retaking the chair by the bed. You rebuilt your life. I have no place in it. Her voice was stronger now, as if gathering her remaining energy for this conversation. I wouldn't want you to stay out of pity. Then why did you call for me? Her undamaged eye studied me. There's something different about you now. Something harder. I had to become harder to survive what happened. I'm sorry, Michael. For everything. I know you are, but it doesn't change anything. She closed her eye briefly. Before you go, did you read my journal, the one I left in your cabin? I shook my head. Not yet. Please read it. When you're ready. I need you to understand why I did what I did, not to excuse it, but to explain. I'll read it eventually. She seemed satisfied with that partial commitment. One more thing. The night you left, you took your grandfather's watch. Do you still have it? The question caught me off guard. Yes. Why? Well, he would be proud of the man you've become. The simple statement hit with unexpected force. My grandfather, formidable in my childhood, stoic, a man of integrity and no compromise. The watch had been his parting gift to me before he died. I have something for you, Laura continued, gesturing weakly toward the small nightstand. Top drawer. I opened it, finding a brown envelope with my name written in her handwriting. What is this? Open it later, when you're home. I tucked the envelope into my jacket pocket without examining it. I should go, let you rest. Will I see you before you go tomorrow? I considered lying, offering false comfort. Instead, I gave her the truth. No, this is the goodbye, Laura. She nodded, a single tear escaping her eye. I understand. Thank you for coming, after all. I stood up, looking at this broken version of the woman I once loved beyond reason. Take care. You too, Michael. She managed a small smile. Be happy. You deserve it. I walked out without looking back, ignoring Emma's accusing glare as I passed the waiting area. That night, in my hotel room, curiosity finally compelled me to open the envelope Laura had given me. Inside was a legal document, property transfer papers for a small cabin on 10 acres near Estes Park. According to the deed, she had purchased it 6 months ago and was now transferring the ownership to me. A note was stapled to the papers. This was meant to be a peace offering when I found you, a place where you could write, away from everything. Now I want you to have it, no strings attached. It's yours, whether you ever speak to me again or not. The realtor has the keys. I stared at the documents, conflicted. On one hand, accepting it felt like allowing her back into my life somehow. On the other, the property represented financial security and a private sanctuary, practical advantages I couldn't just ignore. After some thought, I decided to keep the papers. I could decide later whether to keep the property or sell it. The choice would be mine alone. My flight back to Montana left early the next morning. I didn't call Emma, and I didn't go back to the hospital. Some endings needed to be clean, without the mess of second-guessing or overly emotional goodbyes. Rachel met me at the small Kalispell airport, leaning against her truck with casual confidence. "Welcome back," she said simply. "Everything settled?"
Yes, I replied, tossing my bag into the back of the truck for good. She studied me for a moment before starting the engine. You look different, lighter somehow. I made some necessary decisions about my ex, about my future. Rachel nodded, seeming to understand the distinction. Well, speaking of futures, there's an instructor position opening at the Mountain Rescue Training Center near Whitefish. The director is an old friend. He mentioned you might be perfect for it. I considered the opportunity. Professional advancement, better pay, work aligned with my skills and experience. Sounds interesting. Are they looking for someone to start next month? She looked over at me. If you're planning on staying around here, I am. She smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her since before Laura appeared. I'm glad to hear that. I'd hate to lose my best survival instructor. Is that all you'd hate to lose? I asked, surprising myself with the bluntness of the question. Rachel's eyes widened slightly before she regained her composure. That depends on what's being offered. Dinner tonight, just us. She pretended to consider it, though the slight flush in her cheeks gave her away. I think that can be arranged. As we drove through the snow-covered landscape toward the lodge, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Possibility. Not a return to what was, but the potential for something entirely new, built on stronger foundations. 2 weeks later, I received a brief text from Emma. Laura is out of critical condition, long recovery ahead, but the doctors are cautiously optimistic. Thought you should know. I read it once, then deleted it without responding. That chapter was closed. That same day, I accepted the position at the Mountain Rescue Training Center and signed the papers accepting the cabin in Estes Park, not as a connection to Laura, but as an asset I could use or sell on my own terms. That night, Rachel and I hiked to a ridge overlooking Flathead Lake, the sunset painting the frozen surface in brilliant oranges and reds. Beautiful view, she commented, standing close enough that our shoulders touched. New perspective, I replied, knowing we were talking about more than just the scenery. She turned to face me, her expression open but cautious. Is this really what you want, Michael? No lingering ghosts? I considered the question seriously. I've dealt with my ghosts. I've made peace with the past. I'm ready for what's next. And what's next? She asked. I gestured toward the vast wilderness stretched out before us. This, the life I chose, not the one I lost. She smiled, understanding the weight of that distinction. I can work with that. As the last light faded from the sky, I felt the final weight of my old life lift. I had disappeared once out of necessity. Now I was reappearing by choice, stronger, clearer, and entirely on my own terms. It was enough, more than enough.